The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on August 2nd, 2022.
Aloha, Maui, and welcome to the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters radio show, brought to you by Mokulele Airlines. I'm Pamela Timpot, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, and today we're going to learn a little bit about Swinerton Builders and their projects on Maui. We're going to talk about feral animal relief grants, and we're going to talk about the upcoming election and some chamber programs. But first, let's get started. I'd like to welcome Brandon Martin, who's the assistant project manager with Swinerton. And Swinerton Builders built the Sheraton Maui Resort and Spa in Ka'anapali back in the early 60s, and this was their first project here in Hawaii. With 20 offices in 9 states, Swinerton provides a dynamic one team of shared resources. While each region heavily relies on their local resources, Swinerton has the capability to bring in qualified, available resources from their other operations and divisions, and they utilize this ability depending on the resource availability and capacity of each location. With their vast pool of resources in Hawaii, they have the ability and flexibility to propose the right team for each project, and they work for both pre-construction and construction projects. So we're excited this morning to hear from Brandon. And also, one of the exciting things about Swinerton is they're an employee-owned company. So we always love to hear about that, and that's very unusual in the construction world. So aloha, Brandon. Good morning, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Pamela. Thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you this morning and to have you as a member of the Chamber of Commerce. And I loved learning a little bit about the history of Swinerton Builders as we prepared for this today. Can you tell us about Swinerton and some of the projects that they've done on island? And tell us a little bit about this amazing general contractor who has so many employees.
Yeah, Swinerton's been here a while. Like you mentioned earlier, the Sheraton was our flagship project here in Hawaii back in the early 60s, and that's what really helped us kind of make the jump over from the West Coast. Since then, we've done quite a bit of hospitality work, as well as some ground up. I would say one of the more popular ones would be the Target right in Ho'okele. We completed the structural component over there with the tilt-up panels. We do a lot of renovation work, ground up, a couple warehouses, but I would say the past 5 to 10 years, our focus has really been serving the hospitality industry. And more recently, within the past 2 years, I would say we've somewhat diversified and broken into the aviation market at the airport, as well as healthcare and education. We're doing what we can to serve the community here in Maui and help fill in some of the gaps.
Well, I mean, you folks have been doing large-scale construction here in the islands for a very long time. So exciting to hear that you've reached out into new areas like aviation. I'm glad to hear about that. Healthcare, which, of course, across the state, from our mayor to our state elected officials, everybody's talking about how important it is to create a health and wellness industry here, and more schools and education facilities, are needed as well. So wonderful to hear that you're working in those areas. I was surprised to read up and learn a little bit about the emphasis also on pre-construction services and the breadth of expertise you folks have in-house. Can you talk a little bit about that and what falls under pre-construction services for people who maybe aren't familiar with that?
Yeah, of course. Our pre-construction is pretty in-depth. We work with owners, construction managers, designers through the design development process of a project. So starting with very early conceptual drawings, rough sketches, and understanding the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire life safety requirements, typically imposed by state and building codes, to get something to a point where it is occupiable and buildable. We have some in-house people that we rely on heavily that have an extreme breadth of knowledge in the called MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing realm. They were at one point people in the field putting things in place, laying pipe, things like that have absorbed the knowledge and now provide that insight from an installer standpoint. They jump in, we do constructability reviews, provide comments, notes, and suggestions to help the design develop, as well as pricing it out and providing budgetary costs. So a lot of things now are trying to create, positive design as well as economical benefits, especially given the current market. So it's really a two-sided thing where you're developing a design, but you're also focusing in on costs and how to do smart building. It really helps owners. It really helps our designers figure out the path to go forward. We also have our self-perform side that provides their insights. We do drywall framing, concrete, doors, hardware, things like that we're able to get that type of input as well, knowing how wall framing systems go up, how the details should be terminated for finishes so it looks correct, things like that. It really helps us guide the process and basically take a project from a conceptual to a point where it can be built in place, which is pretty awesome.
That is exciting, and it sounds like a fun meeting I'd like to sit in on and listen to everybody kind of coming together from different standpoints and walking you through the project. So you're getting to a point where you really visualize it in the drawing phase. Yeah,
and I think one of the cool things we've been using lately is it's called Bim. Bim and VD&C we have in-house. We're able to do 3D
and I have
modeling.
You explain that.
Well.
I'm sorry, Brandon. Take a moment to explain what BIM means.
BIM is Building Information Modeling. We're able to take conceptual drawings, create 3D models in a space, cloud space, and give access to designers to help walk through and visualize something. So, taking a 2D paper and creating a 3D space that you can see how things are coming together. You can walk through the model. You can take cut sections. It's fantastic. You can see, where things clash. And, if you were to wait till you were in the field to build this, you would have an issue, which all of a sudden everything comes to a grinding halt.
Yes.
And your resources are still burning cash. And so we're able to prevent as many issues as possible by modeling and clearing clashes and issues before it becomes a field issue. But it helps visualize what the end product is supposed to look like. We also have the ability for existing facilities to do scanning. So 3D scanning, we go in with a laser scanner and are able to provide a design team real as-built condition of a space. So they can use that as their base for a renovation or repair work. And that is extremely helpful because I'm sure most construction people can say that as-built are never truly reliable. But when you can create a 3D scan of the reality, it's an immense positive for your starting point.
Absolutely. I was just in a hotel back in May, and they had completely renovated the hotel, and the shower and tub enclosure was stunning, really stunning, but everything was very slippery, and the way they had designed the glass doors, there was no handle on the inside. So when you went to get out, and the new floor was very slippery, so even if you put the towel down, it can, as you get out, if you're sliding, it slips, and there was no place to grab onto. And every single room, except for the handicap rooms, had been designed that way, and there was no interior place to grab onto, not on the door. There was no handles on the new doors. They hadn't thought it out. And I know this because I slipped. But,
oh, no.
But it was one of those things where it was like, really, you guys built every room like this except for the handicap accessible with not a handle on the doors or outside the door to grab onto or inside the tub just before the door. There was nothing. So it was and a huge remodel that they had just completed just months before I was there. So I think all of these elements, especially on larger properties like a hotel, where once you make a mistake, it's replicated, from room to room to room. That's a challenge. That's a huge challenge. So to be able to have those capabilities in advance, I would think would be a tremendous asset. So that's
Most
really
definitely.
fascinating to know you do that. Yeah.
Hotels are challenging with that because, like you said, you make one mistake and it multiplies 100, 200, 300 times. And then to go back, it definitely impacts operations, and it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, I was sharing with them and had some pretty bad bruises and said, this is a liability. And
definitely, yeah.
And, of course, they just finished the renovation. So at that point, you've got no budget to go back and do that, and to cut through tile and add bars and all of that, it was going to be a huge challenge. So I think it's interesting. Back in the 90s, we were working on visualization projects along the technology you're talking about, trying to teach architects and engineers about these newer coming technologies in the late 90s, and I was part of a team across the state that was training in Oahu and Maui to help people learn about new software tools. But you folks have taken this to an extraordinary level.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what we can do with the modeling world these days. And we tend to apply it to most of our projects, which is fantastic. It helps our project teams really understand the issues. And I would say that most designers are fully appreciative when we can share the model that we're working on. And if they have a model, they can do a comparison. And it really helps flush out all the bugs.
Yeah. I think in anything you do, the more advanced planning and the more you can really visualize what it looks like in the end, how it works, how people are going to function in the system, that's so important. Your company also is known for your tremendous community outreach in the regions that you serve. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's happening here in Hawaii?
Yeah, of course. We have an internal group. It's our CSR committee, our Community Service Relations Committee. They spend the year planning events, volunteer activities, as well as charity drives that help benefit over 20-plus nonprofits here in the state. Some of the things we do, of course, golf tournaments, fundraisers, participate in Habitat for Humanity build days. We do low-E cleanups, all kinds of stuff. But Swinerton definitely feels that it's their responsibility to give back to the community, support the people that are helping us complete projects, and really be involved. It's pretty amazing to be out there with your project team on a weekend, pulling weeds out of a lo'i and really bonding and learning about the culture and the history of these beautiful islands, and sharing that with people and being able to give back. It's pretty awesome for a company our size. We are a larger company, and you don't usually see that as much, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see the support we get.
That really is awesome, and I was reading up about that support, and it just seemed like the company gets immersed wherever they are, and of course here in Hawaii, wanting businesses to understand about our culture and to hear that you're out in the lois and you're really learning firsthand is heartwarming to hear. You know, we briefly mentioned about it being an employee-owned company. Can you tell me from your perspective as an employee, what does that feel like to work for an employee-owned company? And tell me a little bit about the value system and what that means for your future.
Yeah, of course. Swinerton took on the employee ownership a while back, and we really push a one-team effort. You know, it's not just somebody at the top collecting all the profits. It's all of us together, and it creates a more positive culture, especially on projects. You're thinking about every decision. You're thinking about it as a team. You get input from everybody. And at the end of the day, our success is going to be a team success rather than an individual success. So it really promotes teamwork and everybody understanding where money on a project is spent, or where we can make positive impacts or negative impacts, and how do we curb negative impacts. So it really creates a positive project from the team that's executing it, as well as our leadership. We rely heavily on our leadership to provide guidance in tough situations, and they've been in the spot we've been in, and so understanding what they've gone through and them sharing their knowledge and helping us keep on track, it creates a really positive outcome. Being an employee owner, this is one of the first companies that I've worked for that I've been an employee owner, and it gives us a feeling of ownership, which I haven't experienced before working for other GCs or other companies. You really feel like the project is yours. It's an incredible feeling. You participate and to build it, but to say, this was my team. This is what we created. It's pretty amazing, and I know financially it helps all of our employees. Like I said, it's not one person at the top somewhere in a far-off land that's, taking the cream off. It's the people here that are on projects that are working. We are profit sharing. We are benefiting from the positive outcomes on our projects, and we get to share that within our community, and the money stays here with us. And Hawaii is obviously a very expensive cost of living. So anything a company can do to give back to their employees here is pretty fantastic.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because we've had another company on Maui, Sturtevant Air Conditioning, that has been sharing their model with us and how they've been doing it, and we really think that it's a great model for many companies here to consider. And so thank you for sharing that from your perspective, and how it ties you to the project and the results, and how you take such quality and pride in what you do. I think that's awesome, and to know, though, that employees directly benefit from all the work. And it is, I think, a great model to help employees gain more equity. And yes, it's thrilling to see the involvement and the commitment to the company and the projects go up, but also to know that they're building their wealth for their future as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, how big is your team here?
Go
ahead. I'm sorry, Brent.
Right?
I'm sorry. I think I talked over you. I apologize, Brent. Say that again.
Well, you got to support the people that help build your company, and I fully appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a team. There's a great trainer in Hawaii named Glenn Faruya who says there's no I in team. And I always love that. It's about everybody working together. So how many people do you have on your team here?
In the state of Hawaii, we have about 200 employees mixed across our office team and our field teams. It really ranges. Construction is obviously ebb and flow. It's got its peaks. It has its valleys. We do everything we can to keep our core team keep them busy, feed them projects, keep everybody moving. So our average about 200. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it drops a little bit, but we definitely maintain about 200 plus people.
Well, that's phenomenal. I'm so glad to hear it, that you've got such a great presence, and I know with learning about the company how they best leverage their team to utilize the skill sets on every project that needs those skills so that you're getting the best of the best with the work that's done. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today. We've loved having you on, and I know our listeners have learned a great deal from you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Pamela.
It's my pleasure. Have a beautiful Maui day.
You too.
Thank you. Aloha. Well, we'll be right back after a brief message from our sponsor, Mokulele Airlines.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
All right, we're back, and we're going to welcome a great lady in this community who has been so involved in many projects over the years, Susie Thieman. Susie is the executive director of Lokahi Pacific. Excuse me, my computer is acting up. But Susie is the executive director of Lokahi Pacific. She was previously... My apologies. Everything is going haywire on my computer, so my bio is slipping up and down as I'm trying to share Susie's experience. And, of course, I've known her in the community for many, many years. But Susie has been involved in many different projects over the years here in Maui County. And she also has been very involved with the Maui Nonprofit Directors Association, but before that she co-founded and served as a publisher of the Downtown Planet, which was a free weekly newspaper serving downtown Honolulu for 25 years. And then she was the CEO of MEO Business Development Corporation for 8 years. And she has been involved in many different activities and serving on many different boards. But then she became the executive director of Lokahi Pacific, and there has done so many exciting things for the organization. And they work on housing projects and in many different arenas, helping other nonprofits in our community with their grants, and so overseeing some of the grant administration. And Susie is one of those people who is always open to new ideas, always looking for solutions, and has been created many different programs under Lokahi Pacific, the commercial kitchen, the apartments. And now Susie's going to talk to us about feral animal relief and recovery grants. But let me first welcome her, Susie Thieman. Good morning, Susie.
Hey, good morning, Pam. I hope I can live up to that.
Well, my apologies. As I was trying to read the bio, and my computer was jumping around. I'm like, I want to get the newspaper part in because it's so fascinating, the writing that you did for 25 years.
You know, those were the good old days when newspapers were telling the story the way they are, not interpreting them. And I'm sorry, that's kind of a slam at today's journalism, but that's kind of what everybody is looking at and saying. You know, half the fun of running the newspaper was telling both sides of the story and letting the reader figure out what they thought and how they wanted to react to it.
That's right. And you know, we would really love to see that again. Instead of trying to slant things and have people try and influence what our opinion is, it was great to know both sides of the story and make up our minds for ourselves.
Right. And that was the most fun to me because it was just interesting to hear from both sides. When the articles would come out, both sides would call me and say, "Hey, thanks for the information you shared with your readers."
Yes.
That to me was worth all the money in the world.
That's right. It was fair and it was balanced, and everybody felt heard.
Yep.
And that's where we get to, as you and I know, that's really so important as a society to get back to, because that's where we get to winning solutions.
Exactly. If you don't know the real story, you can't help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just so much influence going on these days, and we just need to get back to the facts and let people make up their own mind and let people think about what the winning solutions look like.
Well, right now the facts are that the deer and the wild pigs and boars and some wild dogs and other characters out there running around on four legs are a serious issue for our farmers and ranchers.
They really are. Yes, let's talk about this really important program that you've stepped in to help on, because there's been such devastation and damage, and people are really hurting right now.
You know, they are, and they're. I guess when we started talking, when we first approached about doing this, Yukile Sugimura and the feral animal. What was the name of the committee that I think you served on it, right?
Actually, it's the
Access
Deer Task Force. Yeah.
Right. Access Deer Task Force. When she approached us about putting this package together, I said, "Hey, I'd love to be a part of it because we've been doing things for farmers, especially on Lanai, Molokai, and Hana for many years." And this would give us a chance to finally serve some of the farmers right here in upcountry and so forth. But it's such a universal problem, and maybe the animal has changed in some of the locations and varies, but the devastation is for real. I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah. And people don't realize that when the deer were brought here, and there's a big hunting community, and the deer were desired at one point, but people don't realize there's no natural predators for the deer other than humans.
Right. I think I heard a story about started with 5 or 6 deer 60 years ago or something like that.
Oh,
and I
wow.
go, you've got to be kidding. And nope, that's reality.
Wow. Well, that's kind of what they're saying, right? There's reports of 65,000, 67,000 deer. Some people are saying more now. And we're hearing that if we don't manage them better, then and really cull, we're going to continue to see this just increase and the problems rise.
Right, and it's a combination thing that has to happen. Culling the deer, as you said, as well as putting up fences in the meantime to protect the crops that we need to be growing.
Yes, because even with culling, what we're talking about is we really need some broad solutions, and we're just in the works of trying to get other funding. So those solutions may take years to come, and in the meantime, the devastation that individual farms and ranches are having, the financial losses are great.
Right. It's I think it's interesting as we start to get applications for this grant from the various farmers. The stories that they're telling and the pictures that they're sending.
Yeah.
I'm getting some feedback on the phone. Is it coming through okay?
It's a little scratchy, but it sounds good.
Okay. Actually, the scratchy is probably my voice.
No, it's not.
I mean, you got just the interesting stories of where they were and what they were doing and what they were supplying as far as food products to the community. Just an amazing job. I mean, to be a farmer, my grandfather was a farmer, and I know what it took out of him all the years to farm his property and raise his family of 4 kids. But it's just, when you look at it today, I mean, it's just, as we know, everything is magnified today compared to, we're talking 80 years ago when my grandfather was farming.
Yeah.
And I remember a story he always told. He said that he always kept some cattle, not a big herd, but enough so that whenever one of his kids needed college tuition, he'd sell a cow.
Well, thank God a cow would do it back then.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And all 4 of them went through college and had good jobs, teachers, pilots, etc. But today's world, the reality is that the acreage, our grant covers people who are farming and ranching on more than 12 acres. But 40 or less acres. And one rancher told me, he said 40 acres is a really small ranch. And we took a good look at that, and we said that's true. We, as you figure out how many acres you're supposed to have per cow to really do a good job for that raising those cattle, it takes, it was either 5 or 8 acres per cow was the standard for feeding cows to maximum weight. And it was interesting because we started looking at that and said, wow, on 40 acres, you're only going to have 5 or 8 cattle. That's not a ranch.
Yeah.
And yet, it's as we interpret this now, we're looking at it and saying, if there's a 40-acre piece that we could help you fence, or up to a 40-acre piece that we could help you fence, that's what you should apply for.
That's a good point. Tell people a little bit about the application process and what the grant award can be.
Okay, very good. Always interesting when you're doing an application. A lot of people say, okay, I filled out the 2-page application and signed it. I'm ready to send it in. And we go, wait a minute, wait. Did you read the checklist? And they'll go, what? And I said, on the 3rd page of the 5-page packet that you got, there's a checklist. And it's got things on it like a certificate of good standing from the state, putting in a Schedule C or F from your personal tax returns, partnership agreements if it's a partnership. We talk about business registration certificate, general excise tax filings, Form 49, G49 or 45. And then those are things that you've got in your file if you're doing business properly. It's not like we're asking you to go out and recreate or file these things now. You've got these, and they're right there. Make copies and attach them. Probably in my mind, the hardest part is the grant narrative, and that's worth the most points in our judging schedule. We're going to ask you for a minimum of a full page. Hey, this is the story you've been telling everybody for the last year and a half. What has happened to your farm?
That's right. It's the devastation that we've all been complaining about over and over again.
Right.
And praying for some relief. When is it going to stop?
Exactly. And so what we're saying to them is that this relief initiative is to provide emergency financial assistance to help farmers and ranchers with sustained economic losses, reduced crop yields, loss of pasture forage for cattle, death of cattle, and the overall destruction by the access deer population. And several people have said, you keep referring to access deer. Do the others count? And yes, if you've had devastation from any feral animals, please submit your application. We talk about perhaps including some before and after photos, and those are heartbreaking. Oh, the ones we've seen.
Yeah. It really is something that when you see the damage, it just really puts everything front and center. The photos really help, and it's important for everybody to send those in. And the other thing that's happening is I keep hearing stories of areas where people said, we didn't really have it in this area. They were near us, or our neighbors would complain. And then all of a sudden, everything can change overnight. And you can have, a great garden or a small farm, and next thing you know, they do damage. And many don't realize the kinds of damage that deer do. I mean, one thing is they're prolific eaters, and they're very clumsy animals, and they'll trip and damage irrigation systems and break lines, and then you have huge water expenses that come into play. And then even if they don't eat certain trees, one of the things they love to do is rub their antlers up against them and damage the crop. Right.
Yeah, we're seeing that with we've got some folks who have olives for and those trees are just a mess. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We also see, even in the area where I live, we have a community park for our residents, and they are now in there every night. The folks who live around that park say they hear them, they see them. They're in there prancing around. They're eating. They're leaving their mess behind. and it's no longer something that you can just let the kids go out and play in it.
Yeah.
And that's in a total residential area. I mean, that's just incredible. We hear stories from Lanai of people having their outdoor lights coming on, their sensor lights come on in the middle of the night, and they hear this chomping and this movement of their beautiful greenery, and they find 10 deer in their front yard chewing away, having a good time. And there's just nothing they can do right then and there. I mean, it's here. It's for real.
Yeah. I remember moving here. It was over 40 years ago, and I remember when you're coming up to Pukalani, there was a deer crossing sign, and we never saw deer. I think I saw my first deer on Maui about a decade and a half ago, and it was up in the Kula region. And I remember seeing them on a property where you could count a few, and then you got to a point where it was 5, and then it was 10, then you couldn't count anymore, and it was just this rush of deer running over the open land up in Kula. And it was fascinating. But even then, back 15 years ago, when we obviously had a big problem, we still didn't hear enough about it to really understand. And over those last 15 years, we've now seen just such an escalation and, of course, the proliferation of the deer that now make us, it's another area of crisis that we have to address. And as you point out, not just here, but Molokai and Lanai, which we want those folks to apply as well. Exactly.
Molokai, Lanai, Hana. We've gotten quite a few applications from Molokai. We've got a few from Hana. Lanai is kind of missing out there. I spoke with former council member Ricky Hokama last night. I ran into him in the grocery store, and I said, there's got to be some farmers that have the acreage that fits our grant. And he said, let me get on it. He said, I'll make some phone calls. And so we're hoping that'll bring in some activity from there, because we know it's happening. I mean, it's just, is this worthwhile? Of course it is. We're talking about $30,000 maximum grant, and one of the things we want in that narrative that I just talked about is describing the losses that are directly attributable to the overpopulation, and then how the financial assistance will be used and what measurable outcomes and benefits are expected resulting from this assistance. We're also going to be asking for them to do a final report a year later telling us, did it work? Is it helping? So that we know what's needed going forward. It's a great program, and I really encourage everybody to join in and get an application in. The applications are available on our website at lokahipacific.org. Just click on the button on the menu line that says Feral Animal Grant, and it'll pop right up. It's a 5-page application. Please do yourself a favor, read the whole thing before you start filling it out. It'll be much easier, and as I said, the attachments we're asking for are things that you've already got. You've got them in your files. Just make copies of them and submit them. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call Susie, that's me, at Lokahi Pacific. The number is 808-242-5761, extension 23. Or email me, Susie, S-U-S-I-E, at lokahipacific.org.
Thank you, Susie, because this is a huge program, and this is a big issue that not everybody's dealing with, but our upcountry areas, our farming areas, Hana, Molokai, Lanai, everybody that is in that arena and has deer in those areas is finding damage, and it's just a matter to what extent it's happening. So it's to what extent. And the other thing I want to mention, because you and I have been looking at this a very long time. I remember decades ago, it was a challenge because people wanted to protect the deer and people wanted, to take care of these animals in a different way. But the other thing that's really important to understand is how they're ruining our environment and causing destruction in our watersheds as well.
Right.
This is a complex problem. It's impacting farmers and ranchers. It's starting to impact our community. We're seeing more deer accidents. They're on the rise, and people in Hawaii don't know necessarily like other states who have a proliferation of deer. You know, other places they've got monitors on their car for deer, because when you hit a deer, it does major damage.
Right.
And many of us don't know what that damage looks like, or what it looks like when they come into our yard and near our home. We've had to do fencing at the airport because they were getting out onto the tarmac.
Runway.
So,
yeah.
you know, this is a thing we have to address, and this is for those who have a need, our farmers and ranchers, for deer access, but also you mentioned the other feral animals. This is a program to help.
Right. And, you know, the one thing that has surprised me is how many farmers of this size there are in the Wailuku area.
Yes.
I did not realize we had so many farmers in that area, so this is a wake-up to them, too. Please, you know, and I'm sure there must be some in Lahaina, although doesn't seem to be quite as affected by deer, right?
You know, we're not seeing that yet. I haven't been hearing about that yet, but we'll see how long it takes them to reach over the mountain.
Yeah, I understand they're headed to Kahakaloa. And there's some damage going on out there now, but it's just, it's scary. It really is.
Well, you know, also Laniapoko and a lot of that farming area on that side is also very dry.
Right.
And I think that might be part of it because, of course, looking for water, looking for green.
Right.
Lots of green to eat. And, you know, I live in Pukalani, and you can hear the deer barking all the time.
Jeez.
You didn't used to, but, you know, they're barking.
Yeah, they're out there.
They're out there. They're having a great time.
Well, thanks for inviting me on. And like I said, anybody who wants more information, just give me a call. I will take every call that comes in.
Susie, you are awesome.
I will spend time talking to you so that I know exactly what information you've been provided, and our judges are anxiously awaiting the first round of judging coming up here in the next week or so.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate all that you're doing, and we appreciate you extending yourself to, you know, help people and walk them through some of the obstacles and make sure that they fully understand what they need to submit so they can maximize their time. And it's a great program. So thank you for coming on and sharing it with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Pam.
It's my pleasure. You have a great day.
You too. Aloha.
Aloha. Oh, well, it's so awesome to hear about that exciting program. And, folks, we really encourage all in need to please apply. And I just wanted to talk a little bit today as we get ready to end our show shortly, a little bit about the upcoming elections. As you know, the ballots that were mailed out have already been mailed out. And the primary election is coming up on August 13th. But if you have not yet registered, there is still some time. You can go to one of the voting service centers and turn in a paper registration application, and you can do that. This is the August 2nd, so you've got today and tomorrow. It's due by the 3rd. And also absentee ballot registration is August 6th. This is going to be a very critical election for not just Maui County, but our state. We all know about the housing shortages and the many critical needs we have, housing, infrastructure. You know, we're looking at improved tourism management as well as strong economic diversification. We need to look at funding priorities and how we maximize and invest in programs that can really help, look at new job opportunities for our residents, and sustainable systems. And then these are some of the huge things. And yet, as we just talked about, things like access deer are also big because they have, while they would be considerably further down on our funding list, they have great impacts. So this is the time to really get out and vote. I want to encourage everybody to make sure you're registered to vote so that you can vote on Election Day, August 13th. And there's many ways to do that. You can just go to the Office of Elections. This is a time. And for businesses, please encourage your employees to get out and vote. Please share, your strong support of having them participate in the process. And we want to get everybody out this election. The primary is going to be really important because, as everybody's seen, there's so many candidates for pretty much every office this year that you have many choices to choose from, and you want to make informed choices and vote for people that will represent you well. So I also wanted to talk a little bit this morning about our nominations still being sought for the 2022 Annual Mayor's Small Business Awards. We have many applications coming in, but we have extended the deadline, so we're extending that to mid-August. This is a time where you can nominate an exceptional small business with 10 or fewer employees. You can nominate an exceptional small business of the year with 11 to 39 employees. You can nominate an exceptional small business of the year with 40 to 100 employees. And for some reason, we always seem to be missing people in that category. So we really want to encourage people to think about those businesses that are, we call these small businesses, but 40 to 100 employees by national standards is still a very, very small business. In Hawaii, we have micro businesses that have to do extraordinary things to survive. And we all know amazing businesses in these employee size categories. So you want to reach out to your vendors, to your friends and family, to those you know who are operating a business, and reach out to them and ask them, what is your business size? How many employees do you have? Because, the numbers may have changed during COVID. But ask them, and this is a time to honor them. So we, in addition to those categories, we have Outstanding Nonprofit Business of the Year with 100 or fewer employees. Look at our nonprofit community. We have a wealth of tremendous nonprofits serving this community every day, and we should be honoring them each year. We also have an award for Young Small Business Person. They have to be under the age of 40 as of October 6th. That will be the date that we will be holding our event. So we want to make sure that they are under the age of 40 on that date. But think of the young people you know that are really moving up in their careers and exciting young entrepreneurs. And then we have the Lifetime Achievement Award for an individual who has been doing business in Maui County for more than 20 years, and they also could have up to 100 employees. So whatever range they've got up to 100 employees. We had set an early deadline of July 18th. We have many applications in, but we can accept many more applications. We have time, so we have extended the deadline. It's very easy to find. You can go to the Maui Chamber of Commerce website, www.mauichamber.com, and you can register there. There are a couple of things that come with the registration. We ask you to get from the business that you're nominating a high resolution minimum of 300 dots per inch. Usually a PNG works great. If you're not familiar with dots per inch, and we completely understand that's something used in the design world, but a high-res photograph, people can also submit a 30-second video of their nominee if you'd like. The paperwork is not that hard. It does require that you reach out to them and learn a little something about their business. And we even have a video. Susie Thieman is one of our judges who was just on from Lokahi Pacific. And Susie and other judges participated in a great video as well as a nominator last year to help people understand how to submit winning nominations. We know all of our bankers and credit unions and people in the finance world, business brokers, know outstanding businesses. But most of our nominations these days are coming from community members who are appreciating other outstanding businesses and taking the time to nominate and celebrate them. So we've got room. We really want to encourage everybody. This is a time to nominate outstanding small businesses. Okay, and again, it's very easy to do. The application's online, easy to fill out, but like Susie mentioned with her grant award, with this application, we want to encourage you to read through the checklist and understand the process, because it's really easy if you do that first. It gets a little difficult if you sort of just jump in and start filling out the form without understanding all that you'll have to upload. And if there's any questions, you could call our office at 244-0081, Maui Chamber of Commerce, and we too are here to help people complete these applications. We are also still accepting applications for the 9th annual Made in Maui County Festival, which is going to be held this year. It's always the first weekend in November, so this year that is November 4th and 5th, live at the Maui Arts and Cultural Center. And we are really excited with this year's event. Every year we explain to people that you're always going to find new products. Even with returning vendors, they have developed new products, and each year we always have some new vendors. This year we had 36 new vendors apply. So we've got a lot of new products this year that we're really excited about, in addition to new products for returning vendors. And we know the community has been dying to get out live. And last year, just even in the rescheduled event with the crisis we had last year with the festival and the live going down, the online live element going down, it was great to see people come to our live event at War Memorial, and so much shopping happened, and people were so thrilled to be here. Well, now we're going to be back at the MAC. So we're going to have a live event at the MAC. We're going to have an online. It'll be a hybrid event. There'll be an online component so we can build on the work we've been doing with people across the nation who can't come here but have an interest in Hawaii products, both from a standpoint of individual shoppers as well as wholesale buyers and distributors. We're really trying to continue to leverage that presence so that we're not just selling during the festival, but you can find some unique products year-round and continue to support businesses in Maui County. Again, it is a Maui County show. We're reaching out to all of our islands in Maui County and having vendors sign up. But we did have a lot of applications come in. So what we decided to do this year is to honor those who got their applications in by the deadline. And we have had a team it's a juried show, so we have a selection crew, and they've already been doing that. And there's still room for the next crew, but we wanted to give those who met the deadline more time for planning. So we've got about 15 more spots. So get your application in, madeinmauicountyfestival.com. That's all the time we have for today. We're so glad you could join us for Business Matters. I'm Pamela Timpop, wishing you blessings and best wishes for a beautiful Maui day. Aloha.